In the autumn of 1980, I was working as a freelance journalist in New York City, struggling to make ends meet with small assignments and celebrity interviews. What I'm about to tell you has haunted me for over 4 decades, and until now, I've never shared the complete truth about my final conversation with John Lennon. It was October 15, 1980, when I received an unexpected call from someone claiming to represent John Lennon. They said John wanted to discuss something unusual, something that had been troubling him for months. The voice was nervous, almost whispering, and they insisted we meet at a small cafe 3 blocks away from the Dakota Building, not at his apartment. When I arrived at the cafe that gray Tuesday afternoon, John looked nothing like the confident Beatle the world knew. His hands trembled slightly as he stirred his coffee, and there were dark circles under his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. He kept glancing toward the Dakota Building visible through the window, as if something there was watching him. "I know this sounds mad," he began, his Liverpool accent still thick after all those years in America, "but I've been keeping a dream journal. And the dreams, they're not just dreams anymore." He pulled out a worn leather notebook, its pages filled with his distinctive handwriting. The entries dated back to June 1980, just after he and Yoko had moved back into the Dakota. What I read in those pages still gives me chills. The first entry described a recurring dream where John walked through the Dakota's ornate lobby, but instead of the familiar marble floors, he saw ancient stone covered in strange symbols. In the dream, whispers echoed from the walls, speaking in languages he didn't recognize. But the most disturbing part was the figure he always encountered, a man in a heavy winter coat, standing by the archway, holding something metallic in his hand. At first, I thought it was just stress from the album, John explained, referring to Double Fantasy, which he and Yoko were recording. But then I started noticing things while I was awake. He described how the elevators in the Dakota would sometimes stop at floors he hadn't selected. How he'd hear footsteps in the hallway outside their apartment at exactly 10:50 p.m. every night. How mirrors in their home seemed to reflect movements that weren't there. Imagine discovering this just weeks before releasing what would become your comeback album. What would you do? The most chilling entry was dated October 8th, just a week before our meeting. John had dreamed he was standing outside the Dakota, watching himself return home. In the dream, he saw the man in the winter coat approaching his other self. He wrote, "I tried to scream, to warn myself, but no sound came out. I watched myself turn, and the look in my own eyes was pure terror. Then I woke up, and I could swear I heard someone calling my name from the street below." "The thing is," John said, leaning closer across the small cafe table, "I've been researching the Dakota's history. Did you know it was built on land that was once a Native American burial ground? And before that, there were reports of strange phenomena dating back to the 1600s. He showed me newspaper clippings he'd collected, unexplained deaths, mysterious disappearances, and multiple reports of supernatural encounters. Former residents spoke of feeling watched, of objects moving on their own, and of dreams that seemed to predict future events. Yoko thinks I'm losing my mind," John continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "She says it's just the pressure of coming back to music after 5 years. But I know what I've seen. I know what I've felt." As he spoke, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Through the cafe window, across the street, stood a man in a heavy winter coat. He was staring directly at our table, his face partially obscured by shadow. When I looked again moments later, he was gone. "You saw him too," John said. It wasn't a question. "He's been following me for weeks. Sometimes I catch glimpses of him in reflections, sometimes in crowds. Always wearing that same coat." The final entry John showed me was dated October 14th, the day before our meeting. He had dreamed of walking through Central Park, but instead of trees, he saw tombstones. Each stone bore the name of someone who had lived in the Dakota. At the end of the path stood a grand tombstone with his own name, and below it, a date, December 8, 1980. "I've tried everything," John said, closing the journal. "Meditation, therapy, even consulting with spiritual advisors. Nothing stops the dreams. Nothing makes that man disappear. Which side do you believe? That John's dreams were just anxiety-induced nightmares, or that the Dakota Building was trying to warn him of his fate? Tell us below. He made me promise to keep the journal safe, to only share its contents if something happened to him. If these dreams are trying to tell me something, he said, then maybe someone else needs to know the truth. 2 months later, on December 8, 1980, John Lennon was shot and killed outside the Dakota Building by Mark David Chapman, a man wearing a heavy winter coat. The time of the shooting, 10:50 p.m., the exact time John had been hearing those mysterious footsteps. After John's death, I tried to return the journal to Yoko, but she refused to see me. She said through her assistant that some things were better left buried. I've kept it all these years, occasionally reading those prophetic entries, wondering if John's dreams had somehow shown him glimpses of his own future. The Dakota Building still stands, its Gothic architecture casting long shadows across Central Park West. Current residents report the same phenomena John described: unexplained sounds, mysterious figures, and dreams that feel more real than reality itself. They say some places hold on to the energy of tragic events, replaying them like an eternal loop. Maybe John's spirit found a way to warn himself through dreams, reaching across time to try to change what was destined to happen. I leave you with the song John loved to listen to during those final months, "Beautiful Boy," a tender lullaby he wrote for his son Sean. See you in the next video.